You might think that sleeping outdoors, with bears and wolves around, would be deadly for ancient humans. But Native Americans had developed protection methods so reliable, they never feared the night. Our ancestors didn't have the luxury of booking a hotel to rest at night. They had to worry about things like bears showing up for an uninvited midnight feast. Makes sense, right? The difference between spending a safe night and becoming an animal's meal often came down to a single skill: knowing where not to set up camp. Before fences, before walls, there were the endless plains. A world where every sound, every scent, and every shadow could mean life or death. Native American tribes didn't just live in nature. They lived with it. Every decision they made, where to camp, where to hunt, even where to walk, came from generations of experience and instinct. The very first rule of survival: never fight against nature. If the wind blows east, you travel with it. If the river changes course, you follow its new path. Because nature never loses. Tribes like the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Blackfoot learned to move in harmony with the land. They memorized animal trails. The paths carved by deer, buffalo, and wolves. Those same trails often led to water, to shelter, and sometimes, to danger. Before setting up camp, scouts, often the most experienced hunters, would study the ground for signs. Fresh tracks, claw marks, broken branches. If they saw claw marks high up on trees, they knew bears roamed the area, and that was a warning. Choosing where to sleep wasn't random. It was one of the most critical survival decisions they made. The right spot could mean another sunrise. The wrong one, never waking up again. Camps were built near water but not too close. Why? Because predators, especially at night, came to drink. Being even 50 steps too close could invite trouble. They always looked for slightly elevated land. That way, rain wouldn't flood the ground. And they could see anyone or anything approaching from a distance. The direction of the wind was another secret weapon. If the wind came from the west, they placed their fires on the east side of camp. This way, their scent wouldn't travel toward animals or enemies. Every teepee or shelter was arranged in a pattern. A circle that mirrored the sun and the earth. The entrance of each teepee faced east, toward the rising sun, a symbol of new life and protection. And that circular layout wasn't just spiritual, it was practical. If a predator attacked, everyone knew where to move. Every family had a direction, a purpose, a plan. When night came, the fire was not just for warmth. It was a shield of light. A silent signal to all creatures: we are awake, and we are ready. To the Native Americans, fire wasn't just warmth. It was life. It was protection. And sometimes, it was a weapon. Every tribe knew how to use fire wisely. They understood that its light could save them, but also expose them. That's why they never built fires too close to the camp's edge. From a distance, a bright flame could attract the wrong kind of eyes. A hungry wolf, or worse, another tribe. Instead, they built fires low, between rocks or inside small pits. This kept the flame hidden but still gave heat. And if they needed to disappear quickly, they could smother it in seconds with sand or soil. Even the smoke had to be controlled. They knew that the smell of burning wood could travel for miles. So they chose their wood carefully. Dry wood that burned clean and made almost no smoke. They even learned which trees burned with less scent, so the wind wouldn't betray their location. When they cooked, they used small fires, often covered with flat stones to trap the smoke. Sometimes, they dug cooking pits, so the smell stayed underground. To survive in the wild, smell was everything. They believed that the human scent was the loudest sound in the forest. So they masked it with nature itself, rubbing their hands and clothes with grass, ash, or animal fat. This way, predators couldn't tell the difference between human and earth. Their sense of direction was guided by the wind. If the wind shifted, the entire camp could move. Because one wrong gust could carry their scent toward a hungry bear or a stalking mountain lion. Even the children learned to stay downwind when walking through forests or open plains. It wasn't fear, it was discipline. At night, the fire's glow became their silent guard. But they never trusted it completely. Firelight can blind your eyes to what's beyond the darkness. So they kept the flames low, enough to see. But not enough to lose sight of the shadows. Their defense wasn't built on walls or weapons. It was built on awareness. They listened more than they spoke. The sound of a snapping twig. The sudden silence of crickets. Each was a message. Nature was their alarm system. When danger approached, the response was fast and quiet. No panic. No shouting. Each person knew their role. The hunters grabbed their spears or bows. The elders guarded the children. And the fire was either shielded or extinguished. Depending on what the wind said. Their strength came not from size or power. But from harmony. They didn't conquer the wilderness. They adapted to it. Until the land itself became their ally. Native Americans lived by the calendar of the earth. Every season brought new life, and new danger. In the summer, predators hunted more often. In the winter, hunger made them fearless. So tribes moved with the rhythm of nature. They didn't wander aimlessly. Each route they followed had been proven safe for generations. Old trails, marked by their ancestors, led to food, water, and shelter. But always away from danger. The most trusted members of the tribe, known as the Old Scouts, traveled ahead of the group. They searched for the next camp. Studying animal tracks, the shape of the land, and the smell of the wind. Only when they were sure the land was safe would the rest of the tribe move forward. When it came to protection, their most loyal allies had 4 legs, dogs. These weren't just companions or beasts of burden. They were guardians, early warning systems. And sometimes, the first line of defense. Dogs slept on the outer ring of the camp, forming a living wall of awareness. Their ears caught what no human could hear. The faint crack of a branch. The whisper of paws against the ground. If danger approached, one bark could awaken the entire tribe. But even with dogs, they never relied on chance. Every night, watchmen were chosen. 2 or 3 of the youngest and fastest warriors. They took turns staying awake until sunrise. Eyes fixed on the dark horizon. Listening for the sounds the firelight couldn't reveal. Silence was sacred. Once the sun fell, no one spoke loudly. The camp communicated in whispers. So that even the faintest sound of the forest could be heard. They could tell when the wind shifted. Because it often meant something, or someone, was moving nearby. When danger struck, the tribe didn't panic. They moved like one body. Women and children gathered in the center, while the warriors formed a half-circle around them. Protecting but also leaving space to retreat if needed. Even the fire played a part in defense. If the wind blew toward the enemy, they made the flames smaller, so the smoke wouldn't give away their scent. If the wind was behind them, they fed the fire, letting the smoke roll forward like a curtain of confusion. Some tribes even used decoy fires. Small flames lit far from the real camp, to draw attention away and trick predators or enemies. It was one of the earliest forms of deception in wilderness warfare. But for many tribes, survival wasn't just about tactics. It was spiritual balance. Each night before sleeping, the elders would pray or perform a smoke ritual. It wasn't superstition. It was preparation. Because fear clouds the mind. And a clouded mind doesn't survive the wild. Among many tribes, a saying passed from generation to generation. Fire warms us. Dogs warn us. But awareness keeps us alive. Walls may protect modern people today. But in the open world of the past, awareness was the only shield that mattered. Because out there, the greatest predator was carelessness itself. Protection from predators wasn't achieved by simply laying down a few animal hides. The smartest groups arranged their sleeping areas in a circular pattern. Why a circle? Simple geometry. If everyone slept in a straight line, bears and wolves could attack from different directions. But in a circle, those on the outside naturally acted as sentinels, creating a 360-degree early warning system. If something went wrong, everyone could see it. Natural barriers also played a role. Ancestors didn't carry metal fences, of course. But they could gather fallen logs and place them around the camp to create simple walls. Thorny bushes were even more effective. Because animals hated thorns just as much as humans did. These barriers didn't have to be perfect. But they had to be annoying enough that a wolf wouldn't risk it for a meal. In some areas, a brilliant idea came into play. Elevated sleeping platforms. Yes, bears could climb, but usually, they were lazy. A platform 2 meters high made the bear think, is this really worth it? Most of the time, the answer was no. Even the entrances to the camp were strategic. Stones or branches marked a single entry and exit point. This wasn't just for order, it was for safety. It allowed the sentinels to focus their attention on a few spots, instead of scanning every inch. Shelter placement was clever too. Whenever possible, people placed their backs against rocks or thick tree trunks. This removed the risk of attack from at least one direction. What made these protective camps effective wasn't a single element. The circular arrangement was strengthened by barriers. Barriers gained meaning through designated entrances and elevated platforms combined with natural back protection. It was all interconnected. A layered defense system. As a result, humans, one of the most vulnerable creatures on Earth, became a difficult target at night, but even the best camp needed a more active protector. And this brought humans to their oldest and most reliable nighttime companion. Fire was one of humanity's greatest miracles. Not just a source of light and warmth, but the first psychological weapon against nature's predators. Early humans realized that firelight didn't just chase away the darkness. It kept the eyes of predators lurking in shadows at bay. Fire signaled, "We are here, don't come closer." Native Americans didn't light a fire just for warmth. Each fire was carefully tended like a living being. How big it would be, where it would be placed, how much smoke it would produce. All planned according to the surrounding animal species. Bears and wolves have an innate fear of fire. This fear is instinctively passed down over thousands of years. A bear or wolf seeing a flame would usually retreat. But smart humans knew. Lighting a fire in the wrong spot could attract attention. So it was taught that fires shouldn't be lit too high. A fire up high could be seen for miles. And it could attract not only animals but sometimes human hunters as well. The right spot was near the center of the camp but open enough to see the surroundings. Fire size was important too. A fire too small wouldn't create enough fear. A fire too big was hard to control, lighting the surroundings but deepening shadows. The opposite of the desired effect. Shadow was the predator's ally, not the humans. In some tribes, it was tradition to light several small fires throughout the night. This created a wide circle of light around the camp. A method they called the fire wall, which was especially effective in forested areas. Fires placed around the perimeter, not just in the center, acted like an invisible fence, securing the night. But the power of fire wasn't just in its light. Its smell became a weapon too. The scent of burning wood and smoky air signaled human presence to most wild animals. People learned to intentionally increase this scent, especially by tossing damp branches into the flames. Wet wood produces more smoke than dry wood. And this smoke enveloped the surrounding air like a scent barrier. Animals would detect the danger smell and retreat, without ever knowing exactly where humans were. This method was especially effective on cold winter nights, because cold air carried the smell farther. Controlling the fire was a ritual at the heart of every camp. Watchers kept the fire alive, maintaining it at just the right level without letting the flames rise too high. It was like the breath of the camp. Noise also became a defensive tool. Animals listened to silence. Even the smallest rustle in a quiet forest draws their attention. So some tribes deliberately broke the silence at night. Human voices were unpleasant for bears and wolves. Not just the crackling of fire, but human speech, laughter, songs, even drumbeats, had a deterrent effect. But this wasn't just about making noise. The sounds had to be rhythmic. Rhythmic sounds signaled human control and numerical strength. Predators understood, there are many humans here, and stayed away. During camp nights, young ones sometimes sang, while elders told old stories. This was not just a cultural tradition, it was a defense strategy. In tribal life, story time was actually protection time. Mastery over scent became its own science. Early humans even altered their own smells to protect or mask themselves. Some tribes burned herbal mixtures around the camp, keeping both mosquitoes and predators away. These mixtures included sage, juniper, wild garlic, resin, or animal fat. In some cases, male hunters would deliberately collect predator urine and sprinkle it around the camp. This made the area seem like it belonged to another powerful predator. Animals instinctively avoided the scent. This was, in a sense, prehistoric chemical warfare. The combination of fire, smell, and human noise created an invisible shield throughout the night. But sometimes, even this shield wasn't enough. Bears, especially when hungry or protecting their young, could approach despite the fire. In these cases, tactical defense plans came into play. First, a few people kept watch on the outer circle of the camp. These weren't just passive watchers, they actively listened to the surroundings. Wolf howls, snapping branches, distant grunts, every sound had meaning. Second, a burning branch from the fire was always kept ready. It served as both a light source and a deterrent weapon. Bears hated the sudden glare of fire in their eyes, which temporarily disrupted their vision. Third, crackle traps were set around the camp using fallen branches. If an animal approached, the branches would break and make noise, instantly alerting the humans. This system was essentially a primitive alarm network. And finally, perhaps the most ingenious strategy. Some tribes used burnt animal bones. The sharp smell of these bones disturbed carnivores. Bones were lightly burned and then placed around the perimeter of the camp. This burnt meat scent acted as a warning for most predators. In short, the fire's light, smoke scent, human noise, and natural cues worked together to turn the night in favor of humans. In the heart of nature, without metal weapons or electric fences, our ancestors created a kind of invisible armor. This armor was made of knowledge against fear, fire against darkness, and human intelligence against wild instincts. Native Americans lived by nature's calendar, and this was the strongest part of their survival strategy. Every season brought different dangers. In the summer, predators were more active in hunting. In winter, hunger made them bolder. So tribes migrated during certain times of the year. But these migrations were never random. Every route was tested over centuries for safety. Ancient scouts didn't just look for food or water. They also considered potential dangers. Some areas were known for high concentrations of bears, wolves, or cougars. These places were kept secret on maps, only elders and hunters knew. Migrating tribes carefully planned their camp locations. They chose spots with water access, yet far from animal trails. Many tribes followed the elder scout tradition. The most experienced member of the group would predetermine the next campsite. This way, no one set up camp randomly during the journey. During migrations, one of their greatest allies was the dog. Dogs were not only pack carriers but also early warning systems. At night, even the smallest sound breaking the silence was first noticed by the dogs. They could detect frequencies beyond human hearing. Even a single bark could trigger an alarm in the tribe. Dogs were strategically positioned. They slept on the outer ring of the camp, sensing danger first and buying time for humans inside. But even with dogs, the watch system remained essential. Every night, 2 or 3 person watch groups were formed. These were usually the youngest and most agile, ready to act swiftly if needed. Watchers sat just outside the firelight, listening carefully. If the moonlight was dim, they waited for their eyes to adjust. If an animal approached, the dogs gave the first signal. Even without barking, alert posture was enough to warn humans. Native Americans deeply valued silence. Nighttime camp conversations were forbidden. They communicated only in whispers. This allowed them to hear the subtle sounds of nature. Even a change in wind could signal an approaching animal. Emergency protocols were strict. In case of an animal attack, no one acted randomly. Everyone knew their role beforehand. Women and children gathered in the center of the camp. Men formed a half-circle outside. This arrangement protected both defense and escape routes. Even the fire's direction mattered. If the wind blew from behind, the fire was enlarged. The smoke could blind the predator. If the wind blew from the front, the fire was reduced. So the scent wouldn't reveal the human's exact location. Some tribes even built decoy fires when attack risk was high. These small fires burned slightly away from the real camp. The goal was to mislead predators with light and scent. A primitive trap system of the era. For Native Americans, security wasn't just physical. It was also a matter of spiritual balance. Many tribes considered the night sacred. Before sleeping, elders prayed or performed smoke rituals. This was not just a ritual, it was psychological preparation. Fear distracts, distraction reduces survival chances. A common saying in the tribes. Fire warms us, dogs warn us, but vigilance keeps us alive. This lesson was passed down through thousands of years. Modern humans may rely on walls and locks. But in the wild, these ancient methods still held true. Choose the right spot, use fire wisely, listen to the silence. And never let your guard down for a single moment. Because in that world, carelessness was always the deadliest predator.